Have you ever sat in your living room, looked at your grown children, and wondered, when did they stop listening to me? Barbara, a 74-year-old widow, used to be the rock of her family. She raised 3 children on her own, put their needs before hers, worked 2 jobs to put them through college. But now, they cut her off mid-sentence. They roll their eyes. They make decisions for her, not with her. And the worst part? They don't even realize they're doing it. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. So many older parents feel this quiet pain, the feeling of being invisible in the very family they built. But yelling doesn't help. Guilt trips don't work, and silence only makes it worse. That's why today's video is so important. I'm going to walk you through 6 powerful actions that can help you gently shift the dynamic, not by fighting for respect, but by inspiring it. These are quiet changes that speak volumes, and by the end, you'll see how even one small shift in you can lead to big changes in them. So stay with me. Let's begin. Action 1. Stop explaining yourself to be heard. After turning 70, Thomas, once a respected professor, noticed something odd. Whenever he offered advice to his children, they'd smile politely and ignore it. When he voiced his preferences, where to eat, what movie to watch, his opinions were brushed aside. So he tried harder, explained more, gave reasons. "I've lived through this," he'd say. "I know what I'm talking about." But the more he explained, the less they seemed to listen. Here's the truth no one tells you. Explaining yourself over and over doesn't build respect. It erodes it. Because when you constantly justify your words, what you're really saying is, "I need your permission to matter." And that's not what earns respect. People, even your own children, begin to take you less seriously when they sense that you don't trust your voice unless they agree. But imagine this instead. You say less, but speak with calm certainty. You don't over-explain. You don't defend every choice. You make decisions, express preferences, and stand by them, even if others disagree. That kind of quiet confidence is powerful. It tells your children, without a single argument, "I know who I am. I've earned my voice. I don't need to beg for space. I claim it." So here's your shift. Next time your children question your choices, don't rush to explain. Pause. Say, "I've thought it through. This is what feels right to me." Let your silence speak for you. Let your composure lead the room. Because when you trust your own voice again, they'll start listening too. Action 2. Start saying no without guilt. After her 73rd birthday, Linda found herself busier than ever, but not with things she enjoyed. Her daughter asked her to babysit the grandkids almost every weekend. Her son needed help managing his business paperwork. Her niece dropped by unannounced for long chats that drained her. And Linda, kind-hearted and conflict-averse, always said yes. She told herself it was family, that saying yes meant love, that sacrificing her own time was what a good mother, grandmother, and aunt should do, but beneath the surface, she was exhausted and secretly resentful. Here's the truth many elders struggle to admit. Love and guilt should never live in the same sentence. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-respecting. When you always say yes out of guilt, you teach people that your needs come last. And over time, they start believing it. Not because they're ungrateful, but because they've never seen you choose yourself. Saying no is a boundary. Saying it kindly, calmly, and clearly teaches your family that your time has value too. Next time your child asks for something you can't give, try this. I love you, but I need that time for myself. Not this week. I've already made plans. I'm not up for that right now, but I hope it goes well. No apologies. No lengthy explanations. At first, they might push back. They might even act disappointed. But in time, they'll start seeing you not just as the one who's always available, but as someone who knows their worth. Someone whose time and energy should be asked for, not expected. Because every time you say no with grace, you're really saying yes to your health, your peace, your joy. And that is a powerful thing to model, not just for your children, but for yourself. Action 3. Reclaim the power of silence. After his wife passed away, Mr. Gerald, 76, moved closer to his 2 sons. He thought this would bring them closer. More dinners, deeper talks, maybe even the occasional, "Dad, I need your advice." Instead, what he got was silence. When he did speak, they cut him off. When he offered opinions, they rolled their eyes. Once, during a heated discussion about politics, his younger son muttered, "You don't get how the world works anymore." That night, Gerald didn't sleep. He replayed the conversation again and again. Should he have said more? Should he have raised his voice? But instead of fighting back, Gerald did something unexpected. He chose silence, not as retreat, but as strength. Silence, when used wisely, is not weakness. It's a mirror. When you stop arguing, stop chasing, stop explaining yourself, you create a space where the other person has to face their own behavior. And that's where reflection begins. Disrespect thrives on reaction, but when you don't feed it, it loses its power. The next time his sons interrupted, Gerald paused and simply looked at them. No scolding, no guilt, just calm presence. The next time they made a sarcastic comment, he didn't react. He excused himself with grace and went for a walk. Weeks passed. The tone began to shift. His silence made them listen more. His calm made them reflect. And his absence from drama made them realize something. Dad wasn't looking for attention anymore. He was quietly demanding respect. If your children don't value your voice, don't shout. Don't plead. Instead, speak less. But let every word carry dignity. Because sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is to say nothing at all. Action 4. Change the script. Stop playing the same role. For over 40 years, Patricia was the heart of her family. She cooked every meal, remembered every birthday, took care of her grandchildren, and kept every little piece of the household glued together. But now at 74, she noticed something had shifted. Her daughter had started treating her like the help, barking orders, dropping off the kids without asking, texting last-minute demands. And when Patricia tried to say no, she'd get cold, Patricia said. Like I was only useful when I said yes. It hurt. She cried one night, asking herself, how did we get here? And then she realized something powerful. She hadn't changed the script. She was still playing the same role she had for decades. The giver, the fixer, the one who never said no. The problem? When you never evolve your role, people stop seeing you as a person. They see a function, and functions don't get respected. They get used. So Patricia made a quiet decision. She stopped being available 24/7. She booked a weekend getaway with her old college friends, didn't ask for permission, didn't rearrange to be there just in case. When her daughter asked her to babysit last minute, she calmly replied. "I can't today. I have plans." At first there was tension, confusion, even some guilt tripping. But Patricia held her ground. And slowly, something amazing happened. Her daughter started asking instead of assuming. She said thank you more. She offered to help her for the first time in years. Why? Because Patricia had changed the script. And when you change your role, people are forced to see you differently. So if your children are treating you like a supporting character in their life, it's time to step into a new role. Not one of resentment, but one of renewed identity. You are more than the roles you've played. And when you start living like it, they'll start treating you like it too. Action 5. Reclaim your yes by learning to say no. For most of her life, Teresa said yes. Yes to helping her kids pay bills. Yes to watching the grandkids every weekend, even when she was exhausted. Yes to giving rides, baking cakes, showing up, cleaning up, all of it. But behind every yes was a growing sense of resentment. Because she noticed something strange. The more she gave, the less she was appreciated. Her son once dropped off his kids for the whole weekend. Didn't ask, didn't say thank you, didn't even come back on time. And when Teresa brought it up gently, he laughed and said, "Come on, Mom, you love this stuff." That's when it hit her. He didn't see her generosity as love anymore. He saw it as a service. Here's the truth most older parents don't hear enough. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, without joy or recognition, you're slowly teaching people that your time and energy don't matter. You're not being selfish when you set limits. You're being wise. Teresa began with small steps. She said, "No, I can't help with errands this week. I've already planned a gardening day for myself." She said, "I love spending time with the kids, but I need advance notice. I'm not available last minute anymore." At first, her children were shocked, even annoyed. But then something shifted. They began asking, respecting, thanking her. Because when you protect your time, others start to value it too. So here's the challenge. Think of one thing you've been doing out of obligation, not joy, and say no to it this week. Then use that time for yourself. A walk, a book, a moment of quiet, whatever feeds you. You'll be amazed how your no can be the first step to regaining not just respect, but freedom action. Build a life they want to be a part of, not one that waits for them. After her husband passed away, Gloria, 76, found herself staring at the phone more often than she'd like to admit. She'd wait for her kids to call. She'd wait for them to visit. She'd wait to be included. Birthdays passed quietly. Weekend plans never included her. And slowly, Gloria began to feel like a shadow in her own life. She once told a friend, "I feel like I'm on standby, like I only matter when they need me." And here's what her friend said, something simple, yet life-changing. "Gloria, stop waiting to be invited to life. Host your own." Those words lit something inside her. She joined a watercolor class, started a small garden club in her neighborhood, volunteered once a week at the library, something she'd always wanted to do. She didn't do it to prove a point. She did it because somewhere along the way, she forgot that her life still belonged to her. A funny thing happened after that. Her children started calling more. They wanted to hear about her adventures, her classes, her new friends. They no longer saw her as a woman waiting, but as a woman thriving. Why? Because people, Even your children, respect those who respect their own lives. If you build a life full of meaning, joy, and independence, you don't have to demand respect. They'll give it freely, because they'll be inspired by the way you live. So ask yourself today, what hobby have you put off? What group could you join just for fun? What would your week look like if it didn't revolve around waiting for your kids? Then do one small thing this week just for you, not because you're proving anything, but because you deserve a life that feels full, rich, and yours at every age. Final thoughts. You don't need to demand respect. You can inspire it. If you've reached a point in your life where your children no longer speak to you with kindness, where your advice is ignored, or your presence feels like an afterthought, I want you to know this. You are not powerless, and more importantly, you are not alone. Respect from your children isn't something you force. It's something you awaken in them, by the way you live, the way you speak, and the way you carry yourself. Let's take a moment to reflect. You don't need to chase their approval to earn their respect. You don't need to argue to prove your worth. You don't need to depend on them emotionally to feel whole. You don't need to tolerate disrespect to keep the peace. You don't need to keep giving without appreciation. And you certainly don't need to put your loss on hold, waiting for them. You need to reclaim your power quietly, gracefully, and consistently. Because when you start living with purpose, setting boundaries, and filling your life with joy, something beautiful happens. They start seeing you differently, not as someone they've outgrown, but as someone they admire more than ever. So tonight, before you go to bed, ask yourself, what would I do differently if I truly believed I deserve respect? And tomorrow, start doing it. Because the way back to respect isn't through conflict. It's through self-respect. And that journey begins with you.